Jessup on your right, Ryan Overturf on your left. Both these players 9-1 and in prime position to make the elimination rounds later this evening.
Yes, and I like the matchup here from Ryan's side of the table. Typically, Grixis decks with access to Lightning Bolts, Terminates, Kolaghan's commands, other cheap removal spells, cheap counter spells on the sideboard usually have enough interaction to compete with infect strategies.
Gitaxian Probe will reveal Overturf's hand of Mana Leak, Spell Snare, Delver's Secrets, Snapcaster Mage, and a couple of fetch lands there in 2 polluted deltas, and 1 Scalding Tarn as we start round number 11 here from Indianapolis.
But this is the kind of hand that can get run over, though.
Oh, he's got a Glistener Elf.
Yeah, Overturf with, hand doesn't block very well, doesn't have cheap removal. He's on the draw and his counter spells are 2 mana.
There's a breeding pool. This is kind of like, in a weird way, like a pretty big test right now. If it's Noble Hierarch, okay, that's fine. If it's Glistener Elf, not okay. No. Well, that's Glistener Elf, not okay.
And Blighted Agent in hand too, so Overturf's going to have to rip a lot of removal here to hang.
Delver of Secrets was the draw. Ryan's going to sacrifice the polluted delta. Going to fall down at least 19, most likely 17, as his life total is pretty free to use against Infect, of course.
Though Delver of Secrets is not a bad draw here. He can at least block trades with something.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 2 Delvers in hand now because he picked 1 up for the turn. So in play 1, you just try to trade, I think. No guarantee that Andrew will attack, and also Andrew could play something like a Pendlehaven and mess all this up. But yeah, we'll see what happens when we get back to Andrew's turn. Ryan also has the ability to just leave up Spell Snare. I don't know if he wants to do that. Because one thing about his hand is it's incredibly weak to Blighted Agent.
I think it's very hard to justify leaving up the Spell Snare when Jessup knows about it.
Love it.
Okay. I guess
it.
it's not that hard to justify.
Now, he might actually have a Thought Scour in his hand as well. We'll see as the turns unfold. But back to Andrew Jessup we go.
Yeah, if he can fill out his mana with a cantrip, then I'm much more on board with this line.
Jessup going to play a Windswept Heath. And now, a Might of Old Crozia. That's going to resolve. Sacrifice the Windswept Heath. See what Andrew wants to search up. Basic Forest. I think we might have another pump spell on the way. We do. Might of Old Crozia. An attack for 9 Infect. Do you have Mutagenic Growth? The answer is no. So Ryan's on 9 Infect. 1 to go. Draw a card. What, is that a Pillar of Flame?
1 in the main deck.
What? Sure, I guess.
Now he's very well set up here because he has a Spell Snare to check a Blighted Agent.
Yep.
Jessup's got nothing else going on.
I mean, this was a huge risk by Ryan by not playing a Delver of Secrets on turn 1. I mean, I think it was pretty smart. You're giving yourself, at least in my opinion, the best chance to win. He can't beat Blighted Agent with his hand.
Well, if he's ripping Pillar of Flame.
Well, then he can. Now, all of a sudden, things get a little bit more difficult here for Andrew Jessup. Let's see where he wants to go. He'll play a Pendlehaven on something past the turn back. So Overturf's going to sacrifice Polluted Delta.
And I like that play there from Jessup. There's just no reason to cast into the Spell Snare there. Yeah. It's a pretty big cost for Overturf to leave up a mana anyway, and his hand is fairly land light, as Jessup knows about. And Jessup's got 1 Spell Pierce in the deck, so it's not inconceivable he could get to a spot where he can back up the Blighted Agent with a counter on the way back.
There's Delver Secrets. Pass it back.
Yeah, but now with Overturf having picked up a Lightning Bolt as well, I think he's in firm control of this game.
Here's Twisted Image. That just allows Andrew to cycle. Now we might see something like a Dismember. Yeah, we will. See if Overturf wants to fight over that. I would be surprised if he does. I think you just let your creature bite the dust here.
Yeah, this doesn't seem worth a fight to me. And with Snapcaster in hand, Overturf's going to get into a spot where he can simply Snapcaster a removal spell, clear out a threat, and get a clock going that way. So there's no rush to protect the Delver.
You also take a look at Jessup's life total.
Yep.
10 already. Gitaxian Probe, fetch for a breeding pool, Dismember. Doesn't take much to do yourself a lot of damage with Infect. See what comes next here for Andrew Jessup. Glistener Elf. It's in there. Pass that turn back. Here's a lightning bolt on the end step.
And I like just casting this straight away. It just has some sort of interaction to blow it up. This just leaves you an opportunity to snapcaster, flashback removal spell, and get it off the table that way.
Yeah, be it Pillar Flame, be it Lightning Bolt, whichever you choose, you're going to be able to get that thing off the battlefield. Andrew going to consult some things here, but I think he might try to save it. I mean, there's not a great way to go about doing it. He would have to Pendlehaven and have a pump spell, which I think he might actually just have. He does with Might of Old Croja, so he feels as though he needs to keep this alive.
But now there's the line for Overturf here to get his Snapcaster Mage onto the battlefield, get the Glistener off the table, and then start attacking. But then the risk there is if he taps out to do all this, if he doesn't draw a fourth land, well, now Blighted Agent is back in the equation.
And that's a problem.
Because he's at 9 with no removal spells in hand and no Snapcaster Mage to flash back an additional removal spell.
Correct.
If he draws a fourth land, all of this looks very good, though.
Yeah, I think it gets very easy from there.
If he doesn't draw a land this turn and it's not a removal spell, it gets a little bit more complicated.
Draw a card will Ryan Overturf. Tasigur. That counts.
Yeah,
right?
Tasigur is great in this spot.
Yeah.
It's much the same as the Snapcaster Mage. It's just a blocker for the threat, but this allows him to leave up Mana Leak, Spell Snare, etc.
Yeah, so that actually counts just fine. Looks like Misty Rainforest was the draw to go along with Blighted Agent here for Jessup. Looks like Andrew has decided it's probably time to go for the Blighted Agent. Again, he knows about the Spell Snare. There's not really a lot he can do. I think the situation, right, we just have to get past this stage of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine for a little while to just force the issue on Ryan having to leave up mana, but now with a Tasigur in play, Ryan's going to be able to leave up mana pretty easily for the rest of the game.
And one of the things I like there from Ryan is the use of Mana Leak there in that stage as opposed to Spell Snare. Reason for that is because Mana Leak's just always 2 mana as opposed to Spell Snare being 1, and he's a deck that only has 20 lands.
Yeah, and he's trying to play the efficiency game. Like if he draws a land here, for example, then he has the ability to Snapcaster, removal spell, plus have Spell Snare up. He can't make the same line if the Mana Leak is the card in his hand.
Yeah. So I actually like that play a lot. I believe Vines of the Vast with the draw there for Andrew Jessup. Here's Snapcaster Mage. And it's going to target Lightning Bolt, and Ryan's going to try to get Glistener off the battlefield. Jessup will cast Vines to save the Glistener Elf. But now Overturf knows that Jessup is out of cards. Here comes Tasigur. It's an attack for 4. Going to bring Jessup down to 6, pass the turn back. Jessup might be thinking about sacrificing the old Misty here. I'm checking for a Dryad Arbor in the off chance that he has one. Does not appear to be the case this weekend. So Misty's going to bring him down to 5. Go get himself a breeding pool. Now I'm just checking for weird cards. Okay, so there actually is a really good card for Andrew to draw, which is Distortion Strike.
Yeah, Distortion Strike would do it here.
Because he can beat Mana Leak.
And he can recast through a Remand.
Yep. So if he somehow finds Distortion Strike, a card you don't see very much from Rise of the Eldrazi, that'll do it. Doesn't look like he has it, though. Here's just an attack. Pendlehaven's going to pump the Glistener Elf. The follow-up is a Noble Hierarch. That looks like it might resolve.
Well, it gets a little awkward now because that's a chump blocker, and then Overturf would die on the way back. So he's got to kind of do something about this if he wants to keep attacking.
Yeah, there's Leak. Overturf on tap and draw. There are many ways for him to close out the game right now. Now that actually makes things a little bit easier, right? Because now he can just play 2 blockers if he wants to. He can play Delver's Secrets here. and then he's got Snapcaster Mage as well. Again, he's got a Fate Distortion Strike, though, or he's going to lose the game. So it's nice for Andrew Jessup to have an out in this situation. Let's see what he draws. Doesn't appear to be Distortion Strike.
Or this is a good slow roll.
Certainly one of the two. You and I know Andrew pretty well, not the slow rolling type.
This is a juicy slow roll.
Not really how he gets down.
He's letting it marinate.
Uh-huh. Like a nice steak. Yeah. right. I swear I'll block, says Ryan.
Now's a good time for the distortion strike.
Now's when you show the strike.
Now you let it fire.
Yeah. Here's an Inkmoth Nexus, which is not bad either. But I believe Ryan should be able to just play Snapcaster Mage and just attack with all 3 creatures and get the job done. 2 blockers here for Andrew with Glistener Elf and Inkmoth Nexus, and that is going to do it. So Ryan Overturf is going to win game number 1 here over Andrew Jessup. Grixis Delver, Infect, getting ready for game number 2, which means we will turn our attention to the sideboard. And we'll start with Andrew Jessup, number 23 on the SCG Tour Player of the Year leaderboard, where you got 2 Spell Pierce, 1 Dispel, 2 Dismember, 1 Twisted Image, a Grafdigger's Cage, 4 Kitchen Finks, 1 Dryad Arbor, 3 Nature's Claim.
I mean, I'm in the market for the Spell Pierces and Dispel to play back against Instants. The rest of this, not all that interested in. I could see bringing in another Twisted Image if you want to hedge against potential Spell Skites, which I guess is not out of the question for a deck like Ryan's to have. But really, I'm just interested in the Pierces, the Spells, and I suppose the extra copies of Dismember as well against a Tastic or Gurmag Angler style deck.
For Overturf, you got 4 Ancestral Vision, 2 Magma Spray, Go for the Throat, 3 Counter Squall, 2 Engineer Explosives, 2 Spell Pierce, and a Dispel.
Definitely want the Magma Sprays. The Go for the Throat, the 2 Engineered Explosives. Definitely just any cheap removal spell, any cheap interaction is going to be solid in this matchup. 2 Spell Pierce, 1 Dispel as well. I don't know how much Ryan has room to sideboard out. That's a lot of cards to bring in. So it's possible that there's not enough room for the Spell Pierces and Dispel type cards, but every cheap piece of creature removal is good in this matchup.
Gives you an idea of what both players are working with here, as Ryan Overturf currently up a game and also contributing to the Star City Games newsletter this month, where we do have featured columnists in there all the time, and he's your featured columnist for the month of May.
A lot of information about all the going-ons on Star City Games. Latest information about the SCG Tour with a selected SCG Tour match of the week. Exclusive deck lists and advice from many of SCG's favorite columnists. An exclusive cardboard crack comic, and best of all, signing up is free over at go.starcitygames.com/newsletter. Crank out what? You get 1 a week here?
1 a week.
1 a week.
1 a week on the newsletter. That's totally free, and you're going to be on the internet anyway, so you might as well just take one. Now, we want to learn a little bit more about Andrew Jessup, their Infect player, who is 9-1, member of Team Metagame Gurus. He's 20 years old from the New York area with 3 open top 8s. Played baseball as a competitive outlet until injury turned him into Magic. And actually, I don't know if you've ever realized this before. We ran into Andrew as we were walking to dinner yesterday. Kind of like a limp, sort of. I know he had like a real serious like foot or ankle injury.
Yeah, it definitely looks like something that would prevent him from playing baseball.
I was weird because I just never saw it as pronounced before. Like, we see him at basically every tournament. So, this is kind of his competitive outlet now, and self-proclaimed best player in the house between him and Danny, and a hip-hop fanatic and fairly decent drummer is the member of the Metagame Gurus. But it's good for him that he's able to find a competitive outlet because he is a pretty competitive guy.
Well, that's a fairly common story, I think, with Magic players. A lot of them that I've interacted with were former athletes who either got hurt or got old and then turned to this. One of the most notable ones, one of Magic's all-time great players, Neil Reeves.
Very true.
Former baseball and football standout in Arkansas.
Yep.
Had an athletic scholarship, I think, before injury put him towards Magic instead.
Yeah, people love the competition, though. And, both the Jessup brothers are pretty competitive folks, and Andrew may be more competitive than Danny, but both of them very skilled as well, as we see them quite a bit in the top 8s of the SCG Tour.
Thomas Herzog, another player that we see on the SCG Tour.
Oh, right, the Michigan State man.
Former Michigan State basketball player, which for maybe those of you outside the United States are not that familiar with college basketball, that's a big deal.
Yes, it is.
Michigan State's one of the elite basketball programs in the United States. So, we got some athletes.
They come in all types.
You and me, of course.
Former athletes.
Former athletes. Yep. Former mathletes.
Well, I was not a mathlete. No. No, I was an athlete.
Yeah, neither was I, actually.
We're just throwing out words we don't mean here in the booth.
Yeah.
Soccer and wrestling.
Matthias, a mathlete.
That's true.
I was, captain of the debate team. Other competitive outlets,
I predict Matthias right now, if I had to guess, probably playing a high tide mirrored with someone.
Probably.
That's what I would bet on.
On a lazy Sunday afternoon, after busting out of the Open, I suspect he has dusted off his candelabras.
Yes.
He's bringing out his best Sunday dishware.
That's right.
For the Legacy Classic.
Looks like Ryan's going to take a mulligan. So as he does that very quickly, we're going to talk about the StarCityGames.com weekly sale that is taking place. You got like one more day, basically, to check out what's going on with the weekly sale, where we're doing little select savings on wholesale products.
I like select savings on wholesale lots because I said wholesale sale yesterday, and that sounds a little weird. Anyhow, various lots are on sale right now over at Star City Games. These lots are very good at getting cycles of commons and uncommons. They're very good for getting people introduced to Magic. There's a lot of lots up there. We have a new sale on Star City Games every Monday starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so make sure you're checking back to the website regularly to see the newest sales. This one ends tomorrow, 10:59 a.m. East Coast time.
Ryan's going to keep a 6, going to scry now with the new Vancouver mulligan rule, so we'll see if he likes this top card or if that'll be going to the bottom, and it is going to the bottom. And now we are underway at Pendlehaven into a Noble Hierarch, where Andrew Jessup will start things off. To Overturf we go. He's got quite a few removal spells in hand, 2 Lightning Bolts and a Terminate. He'll play a Steam Fence untapped. I'm curious to see if he wants a Lightning Bolt here or not. It looks like he does not want to.
I think he would do it straight away. There's an interesting puzzle that happens with the removal spells against Infect and what you're supposed to do about Noble Hierarch. I think when your hand is this removal dense, you say, okay, you keep it. I can kill 3 Infect creatures. It's unlikely you can produce a 4th, and that's my route here. Sometimes if you're only on 1 removal spell, you have to kill the Noble Hierarch just to keep the tempo of the game at the right pace.
Well, Lightning Bolt's going to go after Glistener Elf. This is an Apostle's Blessing to save the Glistener Elf. So that problem's taken care of. We head back over Turf's way. Picked up a copy of Serum Visions. A couple copies of Terminate over there for Ryan. And now just a passing of the turn. To Jessup we'll go. Gataxian Probe is how he's going to start the turn. He's going to see a hand that he may or may not like seeing on the other side of the table. 2 Terminates, a Lightning Bolt, a Mana Leak, and a Serum Visions. Now, if Overturf draws another land, I think things get pretty scary here because then it's 2 spells in 1 turn territory. But for right now, as Jessup writes down this information, he's got an idea of what Overturf's working with and how to move forward accordingly as he picks up a Misty Rainforest.
The upshot of all of this, though, the good news for Jessup is there's no threat in that hand. And there's no Snapcaster Mage either. So Jessup can also be fairly patient here. He doesn't have to play into the removal spells if he doesn't want to. He can just send Glistener Elf, and if Overturf plays a removal spell, maybe he responds, maybe he doesn't. And if Overturf just takes the damage, he takes the 2, passes the turn right back.
Misty Rainforest is the land. Noble Hierarch's going to tap for a little bit of mana for another Noble Hierarch.
And this is even better here for bleeding out these removal spells.
Yep. Beatdowns. Exalted Trigger. Now a Pendlehaven activation with Exalted Triggers on the stack.
And Overturf is not in a position here to really play in a spell inside of combat here because Jessup can pretty easily play over the top.
Yeah,
Overturf,
really simple.
Overturf can't play 2 spells in 1 turn.
But what I think we're going to see Overturf do on the end step here is probably cast a Terminate.
Yeah, he has to use his mana on something.
Yeah.
But here's another thing to keep in mind. Overturf now going down to 15. It's possible if he doesn't throw a threat card that the Noble Hierarchs themselves start becoming threat cards.
A little regular damage plus pump spells.
Yeah. That route gets cut off pretty fast when 1 blocker shows up. So, Overturf can turn it off pretty easily. But just something to keep in mind.
Maybe put Become Immense into the equation there. We'll see. Just making sure the life totals are all clear here.
Yeah, he's taking 5 damage, a fetch land, and 2 untapped Ravnica Duels. Yeah. I don't think there's been any Noble Hierarch attacks. So
yeah, it looks like Jessup's going to sacrifice Misty Rainforest here. Get a Breeding Pool untapped. This is a Vines. All right. Over to Overturf will go. Snapcaster makes a draw, not the third land that he's looking for. So now he's got to maybe ask himself the question of, do I try to spike the land with the Serum Visions?
Overturf has shown in the matches we've had him on that he doesn't really Serum Vision digging for a land when he has an acceptable backup play to do instead. With Terminate and Mana Leak in hand, it seems very risky to try to dig for land number 3.
Let's go back Jessup's way. I think he's got another Vines of the Vastwood in hand. Jeez.
Yeah, Jessup's setup here is so good for slow playing. Doesn't have to do anything too risky. And this play pattern puts a lot of pressure on Overturf to have a bunch of instants as well, especially because if he answers the Glistener Elf, the Nexus is the next threat that he has to try to answer.
Very true.
And you can't handle that thing at sorcery speed at all.
See where Andrew wants to move forward now. Another Inkmoth Nexus. He has got no shortage of infect threats. It looks like he's going to attack with multiple infect threats maybe this turn.
Yeah, I think that he's okay. So he's going to be doing this instead.
Okay.
I thought that potentially what was happening here was Jessup saying it's so likely he has one removal spell. I'm going to ignore Exalted for one turn and just get both in there.
Here's an attack with Inkmoth Nexus. Exalted triggers on the stack, activate Pendelhaven. So it's looking to turn Inkmoth Nexus into a 2/3 and then to a 4/5, which would be an attack for 4 infect. If this all goes the way that Andrew wants it to, bring him up to 8 infect. Here's a Terminate. I think Jessup has a Vines. He does. And that is going to do it with Vines with Kicker.
Yeah, that's
more than enough. Like the Pendelhaven activation won't work, obviously, because it's bigger. It turns into a 5/5, but then 2 Exalted triggers. That should be more than enough.
Yeah.
Both players.
4, 5, 6 for the Noble Hierarch. Vines is 10. The Nexus itself is 1.
Yep.
Yeah, so he's actually over.
It's all clear now. Andrew Jessup's going to win game number 2 here over Ryan Overturf. In fact, Grixis Delver getting ready for game number 3. Now, Ryan's on the play here, so do you think anything changes given that he is on the play now? Maybe not going to play as defensive?
Well, I think there's more of an argument for cards like Mana Leak. The 2 mana interaction, that's a little situational. Gets a bit better on the play. But I think Overturf still had Mana Leak in his deck at that point, so I don't know if any of those got shaved, if he still keeps in all of them. I guess Remand maybe gets a little bit better on the play, but Remand seems so poor to me in the matchup that it probably just gets cut regardless.
Yeah, I don't think you want that card in this matchup at all. Everything's so cheap on the infect side.
You can see, though, there's a lot of pressure on being able to interact for 1 mana. Overturf had Bolt into Terminate or Mana Leak as his interaction, and that wasn't good enough.
No, not at all.
You need to be able to get to 2 spells in 1 turn. The best way to do that is with 1 mana spells. Leaning on 2 mana interaction, even Mana Leak and Terminate, which you would think you would be able to trade 1 for 1 pretty reliably with those cards, they aren't efficient enough all the time.
Well, that gives you an idea what both players are working with here. Ryan will be on the play here for game number 3. So we'll talk about the StarCityGames.com YouTube page here, where you can watch the replays of this match, this entire tournament, and a whole bunch more.
A lot goes on the YouTube page. You can subscribe right now at youtube.com/StarCityGames. We have all sorts of archives up there, including Versus Series content, premium archives, SCG Tour archives, and content that's exclusive to the YouTube page, such as unboxings. Again, you can subscribe right now for free at youtube.com/StarCityGames and get notified when new content is uploaded to the page.
Become one of over 90,000 subscribers, almost 100,000 subscribers there. So thank you guys very much for supporting youtube.com/StarCityGames as we get ready here for game number 3 between Ryan Overturf and Andrew Jessup. Infect Grixis Delver, we expect to see a little more Infect, I think, this weekend. But we do see at least one player making a deep run with it here in Andrew Jessup. It is just a really good deck.
Yes. And most decks in the format really struggle to answer Blighted Agent because most of what they're trying to do to defend themselves from creature decks is block. Or they struggle with Inkmoth Nexus because the way they try to interact with opposing creatures is with sorcery speed stuff. So there's usually at least 1 hole in the armor for the opposing side, sometimes 2. On top of that, the deck is very explosive, and as we saw, Overturf had a curve there of Lightning Bolt and Terminate with other stuff going on, and got killed still very early on in the game.
One of my favorite things about Infect is just it's kind of hidden how good Noble Hierarch is in this deck. Just Exalted matters a lot, having a little bit of additional mana, taps for all the colors of mana that you need in the deck. It's just a great great card in the strategy.
One of the best ways to defend yourself against Infect, because you don't want to start playing removal spells inside of combat, have them respawn with pump spells and get killed, is they attack with a Glistener Elf, you take it, and then end of the turn, you bolt it. So if they have a pump spell to save their guy, at least you're not taking that damage inside of combat. When there's Noble Hierarch involved, you're taking so much more damage inside of combat that you're almost forced to start playing your removal spells inside of combat. And when that starts happening, if they're playing over the top with the pump spells, you just get killed.
Yep.
That play pattern of patience and trying to time your removal spells in such a way that your opponent's not playing over the top on you inside of combat becomes a lot harder to do when Noble Hierarch's in the equation.
Game number 3 about to be underway here, but if you are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan here in the booth for the Indianapolis Open weekend here on the SCG Tour at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Indy all weekend long to make our way through a couple more rounds here of Swiss action before we cut the elimination round, and someone's walking out of here with $5,000, 30 SCG points, and an invite to our New Jersey Invitational.
And in fact, Overturf displayed a lot of that patience in game 1. He, instead of playing a Delver and trying to block, he sort of just played his land and said go to play around Blind Agent. On turn 2, he took 9 points of Infect damage, and then locked out the game.
Yep. Basically saying if you have your best hand, okay, that's fine, I lose to that. If you have 2+4s and mutagenic growth to go with the Glistener Elf, all right, fair enough.
Yep.
Chances are maybe I wasn't going to win anyway.
I'm going to take one shot, and then I'm going to be able to answer or otherwise defend myself from everything else you do for the rest of the game.
Yeah. Looks like Overturf is going to take a mulligan here.
Also, that game that you saw there with Overturf having cards like Terminate and Mana Leak and not being able to keep up efficiency-wise is why one of the go-to cards as a sideboard card against Infect is Gut Shot.
Yes.
Because just casting it for 0 and being able to do stuff with the rest of your mana to interact is a very, very powerful line.
I mean, having free spells is just awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and that one happens to just be very, very good against Infect.
It always trades with something, and because it's 0 mana, there's a good chance it trades with a creature, which is what you really would like to do.
That's the dream, as they say.
Yeah. It's a little narrow, but if you've got a beatdown deck with a bunch of creatures, you're playing with Snapcaster Mage, you want to improve your matchup, I think it's the best card in Modern for fighting this deck, and to a lesser degree, Affinity.
Overturf looking at 6. He'll scry top card to the bottom. We're underway here in game 3, and it's a Delver of Secrets is where he's going to start off a Steam Vent. So down to 18 he goes. I think that's a good start to have. You can see his hand is actually pretty good, too. He's got another land, a Lightning Bolt, a Serum Visions, and a Mana Leak.
If he's able to quickly flip this Delver of Secrets, he does have a hand that's conducive to flip this, start attacking. I got Mana Leak and Lightning Bolt to keep you off balance, keep you from getting a threat going. It's not like Infect interacts with the other side of the battlefield very reliably, so you get that old Delver draw. Turn 1 Delver and then just defend yourself for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's one of those legacy Delver draws is what it is. There's Noble Hierarch. Now, I am curious as we're going to take a look. No transformation here with the Delver. Picked up a Bloodstained Mire. Are we going to see Lightning Bolt on this Noble Hierarch or waiting?
I think Overturf is going to wait here because let's say his turn here is Serum Visions plus Lightning Bolt your Hierarch. If Jessup goes untap Blighted Agent, now Overturf has no removal spell in hand.
Yep.
I think he's better off sitting on Mana Leak for 1 turn.
Okay.
Because he has an alternate line here.
Watergrave, the land that Ryan has found here, off of the Bloodstained Mire. Going to fall down to 15.
Although it looks like Overturf is at least going to Serum Visions. I guess based on the Serum Visions, it'll determine whether or not he wants to bolt the Hierarch.
He'll draw a card, another Lightning Bolt. Snapcaster, Mana Leak, and he does have a 3rd land. I think he's almost certainly going to keep Snapcaster, put Mana Leak to the bottom. Now maybe we see the Bolt, yeah.
Yeah, now he's got another Bolt and a Snapcaster plus a Bolt, so he can afford.
There's a lot to like there.
Yep. Now he is giving himself, 1 turn of not flipping the Delver because he put Mana Leak to the bottom. If he wanted to, he could have locked that up.
Yep. Delver doesn't flip as easily in Modern as it does in Legacy. Also, you just have less control, too, without Brainstorm. A Forest. And now a Glistener Elf. Overturf will untap and draw. Pick up that Snapcaster Mage he left on top of the deck. There's a Steam Vent. He'll fall down to 13. Interesting line here by Ryan.
Well, I don't think he wants to trade. It's his one threat. I think that there's an argument for leaving the Mana Leak on top of the deck as the first draw step.
Okay.
Because you have Mana Leak plus Bolt next turn. I know the second Mana Leak may be a little inefficient, but I think flipping the Delver up is worth a lot.
There's Noble Hierarch.
Because it looks like Overturf has the tools to defend himself for a while. It's not clear he can just lock Jessup out for the whole game.
Here's an attack. That's a Lightning Bolt. Curious to see how Andrew Jessup's going to respond here. Now you can see the Apostle's Blessing that he has in his hand.
Yeah, there's a lot of lines available to Overturf in this spot. I think my instinct, and Overturf has a lot more experience playing this deck, so keep that in mind when I'm analyzing this stuff. My instinct here would have said, please, play Snapcaster Mage, target Lightning Bolt, and then move to blockers without doing anything with the Lightning Bolt.
Sure. And
if you trade, that's great. If he plays a pump spell inside of combat, you have a Lightning Bolt ready to go. If he trades off and doesn't play anything else, you can flash back the Lightning Bolt on the Noble Hierarch. That's where I went instinctually.
What I like about this is that Mana Leak is not particularly good against this deck, especially if Noble Hierarch resolves. So at least you're exchanging some resources here, and then you're getting at least a little bit of use out of your Mana Leak.
Yeah, that's the argument for the line of play that Overturf has taken here, and it kind of lines up logically with him putting the Mana Leak to the bottom. He might feel like that's just too hard of a card to reliably cash in for value once you get to this stage of the game.
Because now, after all of the dust settles here, presumably, if Ryan doesn't kill this creature, he can just say, okay, untap, upkeep, I draw whatever I draw, Snapcaster Mage, Lightning Bolt your Glistener Elf, and then I'm probably in pretty good shape.
Yeah, if Jessup's hand is perfect, he gets killed here. That's the risk.
Yeah, I mean, that's truly scary. So Ryan is going to lose the war. Danny's going to win the war here with all of the spells. 2 damage to be dealt, 2 infect damage, of course. Take a look for Delver. Oof.
Kolaghan's Command's a lot.
Pretty good.
That card's a lot here.
Legacy Classic players.
Yeah, I like casting this right now. 2 damage there, make him discard. I know that Jessup has a Become Immense in hand. So that's...
But it's still 2 cards. No matter how you slice it, it's 2 cards.
Are posted online and will be heading out to the boards momentarily. Again, your parents.
He's going to discard Become Immense, and now here's an attack for 3.
Please find your seat.
It's a big draw there from Overturf. Let's go back Jessup's way. And Jessup going to play a Glistener Elf, serve him for one with the Hierarch, bring Overturf down to 12. Overturf will draw, picked up an island. We know he's got a Lightning Bolt in the graveyard. He'll play a Snapcaster Mage. Gonna try to bolt right now. He'll fail thanks to Spell Pierce. It's okay though, at least in my opinion, that he fails that test.
It's not bad because he's got a 2-power creature checking what is, on the table, a 2/2 Glistener Elf.
Yep.
And if this Snapcaster Mage trades with a Glistener Elf, great. If it trades with a Pump Spell, also fine. Jessup's at 7 here, so it's not like he can afford that many Insectile Aberration hits.
Yep, there's Mutagenic Growth. So it trades with that. Overturf will very quickly untap and draw. Picked up a copy of Terminate. I think that probably closes this one out. Terminate's going to take care of the Glistener Elf. Here's an attack for 3. Jessup's going to fall down to 4.
I don't know if there's a set of draws at this point because it's a 2-turn clock. Jessup basically has to rip a threat card now, and then I don't know how he cobbles together 8 Infect the next turn.
Thought Scour the draw. Thought Scour the play. Rhino will target himself, lose a Terminated Snapcaster Mage, draw a card, it's Polluted Delta. That's an attack for 3. Jessup's going to fall down to 1. Back over to Andrew we go. He'll draw a card. I think he's going to show the hand here. I think the Blight Agent came 1 turn too late if he did draw it.
And Blight Agent might have been good if he drew it the previous turn.
The combination that he would have to draw that turn is Blight Agent into Become Immense.
Yes.
And in combination with Exalted, that's exactly 8. So it would have had to involve exactly Become Immense. He didn't have that, and that's why he's extending the hand. Ryan Overturf going to win this match over Andrew Jessup 2-1. Grixis Delver will take care of Infect. And for our commentator compadre, 10-1, still in first place here in Indianapolis.